started with introducing Susie, I just wanted to ask and see how many people have been to any of Susie's farm stands.
Yay!
Wow, you got some hands. That's great.
Yay.
And how many of you knew that she had been the editor-in-chief of Fine Cooking magazine? Okay. I could probably skip my whole introduction. And I had another question for you. How many people have one of Susie's cookbooks?
Yay!
Well, if you don't have, well, she has 4 of them, so if you don't have all 4, you may be missing out. So I want to encourage that. I met Susie Middleton standing in the pizza line at the Orange Peel Bay in Aquina. And if you haven't ever been there, it's a quintessential up-island experience. And the lines can be really long, so we had a long time to get to chat. And we found out we had a lot of mutual interests in food and writing. And we've been friends ever since.
That's right.
That was about, I think, 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And we became friends in spite of the fact that Susie went to Duke University and I went to UNC. Some of you know about that rivalry.
Yeah.
Susie became a wash ashore, as they call people who come to live on the island, about 10 years ago. I'm going to give you just a quick summary of some of Susie's accomplishments. It's breathtaking. Susie never does anything halfway, so you know that her devotion and her work has brought her to this place with having these 4 cookbooks. Her first cookbook was Fast.
Here, I'll be
do the show
Vanna.
Fast, Fresh, and Green with Chronicle Books, and that was a national bestseller, which is great for your first cookbook.
Yes, it is.
It was also one of NPR's top 10 summer cookbooks. Fresh from the Farm, I actually was not the next one, but that was a book where she actually did a little bit more writing and personal essay, right there. And that also was an NPR Top 100 book. Fresh and Green Table, which was her second book, came along in 2012. And finally, the book that just came out this year.
Yay!
Yeah, Simple Green Suppers. Yeah, as you can see, they're all beautiful. A Simple Green Supper is a fresh strategy for one-dish vegetarian meals. So Susie has managed to find herself in the niche of what our mothers and grandmothers always said, eat your vegetables. And she's made that a lot simpler for many of us. Susie, as many of you already know, is the former editor-in-chief of Fine Cooking magazine, which is really one of the top cooking magazines in the country, maybe in the world. It's totally reliable. It's totally dedicated to making sure that you get good, accurate recipes and information. I love that magazine. But Susie began her career at 17 magazine, and
Yay. My boss is here.
Boss is
My
here.
first boss. Sarah
What a
Crichton.
smart lady! What a smart lady she was. She went on to work for Sailing World magazine and took a little detour then to
Culinary School.
Culinary School.
Institute of Culinary. It was Peter Kump's then, but now it's Institute of Culinary Education.
That's right. And then went to Fine Cooking magazine. She also won a blue ribbon. She was awarded a blue ribbon at the Culinary School and became a member of the inaugural Hall of Achievement, which they recognize their graduates. So it was quite impressive. Since then, she's been doing, since she moved to the island especially, she's been doing freelance work. And for many magazines, she helped start Edible Vineyard, which having seen maybe 4 or 5 of those magazines in other communities, this is actually one of the best ones I've ever seen. The photography, the writing, the tone is just perfect for this community. And that's how, I found out that she actually did editing. I didn't know that. Susie is not one to toot her own horn. she has now left her life primarily as farming and freelance writing and to become a special projects editor at the Vineyard Gazette. And are they lucky to have her? She's editing The Vine, which is a compendium of what's going on in the country, on the island during the summer. She writes for the paper and the magazine, and she works on a variety of other editorial projects. As many of you already know, she has a farm stand and has worked at least 3 different farm plots that I know of. I consider her to be a farm-to-table industry, sort of in and of herself.
Oh, God.
She also writes a regular blog on her website, sixburnersue.com, since 2010. So now that I've shared all those accomplishments, I really urge you not to be intimidated, but to be inspired. And you'll have a chance to ask some questions a little bit later. Susie, 4 cookbooks in 7 years. That was while you were developing a farm stand, writing blogs, posting photos, and doing freelance editing and writing. Tell us about what it's like to do cookbooks in the midst of all that.
Well, thank you, Kay, for that amazing introduction. And thank you all for coming this morning. My God. And yes, I work all the time and I have no life, in case you're wondering. And what was the question? What do I,
how do you write 4 cookbooks while you're doing all those other things? And take us through what it takes to put a cookbook together.
I always find people are interested in how a cookbook is put together, and it is. And by the way, my editor Jen is here today from Roost Books, which is an absolutely fabulous experience I've had with Simple Green Suppers. But it's a little different for every cookbook author, but it basically, to be quick, it starts with a proposal that you write that gives, I have an agent, I go through an agent, and she sends a proposal out to publishers, and you need to be really succinct about what your book is about, give some sample recipes and chapter organization, marketing information, who are you writing the book for? And that gives the publisher the sense of whether it works with what they're doing or whether they think there's a market for it. So that if you're doing your job right, you do a lot of work up front with your proposal. And then, so to the question of how I'm doing that with other stuff, it's really time management, as with everything, a lot of working at night to get these things done. So a proposal, in this case with Simple Green Suppers, Jen was here on the island. I met her. She saw my proposal. She made an offer to purchase it. We had some discussions about how the book was going to look and feel, what was going to be in it, who our photographer was going to be. Hi, Priscilla. And in this particular case, it was really fun because we decided to work with a local photographer who is really good with food, people, and vegetables. And we all decided that was a good idea. I signed the contract. We decided we were going to do 100 zillion recipes and 4,000 photos. So off Randy was my photographer, and I went to do that. It took us about a year to get that all done. And part of my responsibility is developing the recipes is obviously the hugest part of doing a cookbook, and I do that based on techniques that I know, and then flavor ideas and things I've done in the past, and then adapt it to what the subject of the book is. And then we scheduled the photo shoots, and we did about 4 photo shoots. We did some on the farm, we did some of me, but we did a lot of finished food, which is a huge production because it involves a lot of propping. I had a friend in the kitchen helping me so that I could work with Randy on the set to get the food to look good. Then we turned that all in. I'm trying to speed this up. And Jen begins to edit it, and it comes back to you, and you go through several processes of seeing the book come together and the photographs come in, and it's very exciting. and then it goes off to be printed, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and then you see it, and then the whole marketing and promotion thing starts.
Right, right. It's a tremendous amount of work, and you're doing this while you're, picking your vegetables for your farm stand,
Right.
making sure that the flowers are cut and fresh. Susie has an amazing eye for color and design, and you see that in the photos in her book and on her blog. Tell us about your interest in photography.
Well, part of being a freelance writer and a book author is, you need to have a blog. And actually, for me, it was really fun to start my blog. I started Six Burner Sue when I got out here to the vineyard, because I sort of resisted taking pictures when I was at Fine Cooking. When I first got to Fine Cooking magazine, we were modeled after Fine Home Building magazine, where the boys went out and took pictures. And I was like, okay, girls, let's go take pictures of food. And it's like, well, okay, we're restaurant kitchens. They're hideous. The light's terrible. None of us know what we're doing. So fortunately, we came around on that. But I was like, all right, I'm not doing that. Anyway, I got out here, and all I wanted to do was take pictures because it was so gorgeous, and it really spoke to me. I've always loved putting words and pictures together since I was a little girl. So I'm in the right profession because I get to do that. And so on my blog, it was like my own little mini magazine I got to do all by myself. And also, it seemed to me a good opportunity to practice writing. I've really slowed down on it quite a bit, but doing fair amount of other types of writing. But the blog, if you're interested in getting involved in this type of thing, I recommend doing it because it's a good discipline.
I first noticed your interest in how things looked when you told me what kinds of chickens that you were getting. And they were all these beautiful chickens that looked like they had come right out of a painting of some sort.
Yeah.
And I thought, Susie has really got a great eye, because not only did she need chickens to lay eggs, but they had to be beautiful.
Well, you gotta keep yourself interested. Right?
Yeah, that's right. You are now, as you declared in your last book, a vegetarian, but all your cookbooks as an author have been focused on vegetables even before you said that. And you said something in the introduction here of this last book. Life is funny. You're busy doing one thing, focusing on the road ahead, and meanwhile, something else entirely unplanned is taking a shape around you. Can you speak a little bit about why vegetables and why vegetarian?
Oh, I don't know, because I always tell people I'm not a health nut and I'm not a nutritionist. But I am obsessed with vegetables, and partly it's visual, partly it's when I went to culinary school, I found that they were the most creative thing. I mean, you could do a lot with meat, you can do a lot with some different things, but vegetables are endlessly intriguing to me. And so it was really more of a beauty and a taste thing that got me involved. And then when I was at Fine Cooking, before I became editor, even when I was editor, I was writing stories, and I found a little niche in writing technique stories about how to cook vegetables, because this was, 15 years ago, and people were really starting to want to eat more vegetables, but nobody knew what to do with them, and I always say you all might love vegetables, but you're cooking for people who may not, so how do you make them tasty? So, that's sort of become my mission. And then when I got out here and I started growing vegetables, I just was completely taken. The whole growing thing is a part of my soul that I didn't know I had to satisfy until I got out here. It was really, I talked a little bit about that in Fresh from the Farm. But So for me, it's just grown, and I have not gotten tired of it. And the vegetarian thing happened after my partner and I raised 3 pigs one winter, and then we wound up with 2 of them in the freezer. I thought we were only going to have 1. So I was like pork central cooking. After we got through the ribs and the bacon and a couple other things, I was like, oh, I'm done with this now. We had a lot of braised pork. But anyway, I say that, but mostly I think I just stepped over the line because I was eating less and less meat. And I finally decided, I would go to the grocery store and I'd be uninspired. So I just thought, I'm going to give this a go. And I did, and I love it. So
great. What do you think is the biggest mistake people make when they're cooking vegetables or thinking about cooking vegetables?
Oh gosh, probably undercooking them. I had my first, when I went to culinary school, I went back to work, do an externship at a restaurant called Al Forno in Providence, Rhode Island, which I don't know if any of you have ever been to, but everything was a wood-fired oven. And also, this was a long time ago, I don't even know how many years, they were bringing in food fresh from farms, which was unique back then. So I'd just gotten out of culinary school where it was all French techniques, which made me a little nervous. I mean, I did a good job at it, but it was so disciplined. And I got to this Italian restaurant that was just fun and fresh and hot. Right. And I learned to cook vegetables at high heat and that caramelization. I also have a sweet tooth. So ever since then, I have been cooking vegetables, roasting them, grilling them, sautéing them, bringing flavor out of them. And then, what I do in my books is add flavor throughout the process of cooking. I show people how to do that so that you're really bringing some flavor into the dishes.
It was funny because I thought you were going to say people overcook the vegetables because I come from the South, and that's been a tradition for a long time.
I wasn't necessarily talking about braising, but it's a whole, and there's,
Right, great. I find most people are intimidated by people who are cookbook authors and professional cooks, and they never invite you to dinner unless you're a very close friend.
Okay.
Do you want to share a culinary disaster so people will sort of...
I don't know. I had them all the time when I worked in a gourmet market also, and we're always burning nuts, but
I do that all the time.
and I still burn nuts and toast. And I have a terrible oven now, which has this one hot spot. And I was doing a cooking demonstration. Somebody's here who was at my Farm Institute cooking demonstration a few weeks ago, and I could not I wanted to show people that when you toast nuts, it brings out a lot of flavor. It's like roasting coffee beans. And it's a very good trick for vegetarian cooking. Anyway, I wound up not being able to bring any nuts with me because I burned 3 batches of them. So.
I've done that. I use a toaster oven and have to set the time on it. So.
By the way, Kate is a fabulous cook, and she does invite me to dinner, which I very much appreciate.
And she always brings something.
I do.
You mentioned, Susie, on your website that you're happiest when you're outside working in the dirt. And growing beautiful vegetables is probably the most satisfying thing that you've ever done. What are the roots of that passion for you? Did you grow up on a farm?
No, I grew up in Washington, Northwest Washington, D.C., which is a very formal upbringing, but which I sort of tried to escape, honestly. In the summer times, we went to Delaware, where my father had grown up. My grandmother was a very good cook. We ate a lot of corn and tomatoes and beans. We went crabbing. It was very much like it is here. And that was a very happy time for me. My dad had a vegetable garden, and psychologically, I think I very much associated that with, and I first learned to love fresh things there. When I was first married, I had a vegetable garden. I really enjoyed it. But then as I got busy as a magazine editor, all of that went away. I mean, I got to the point in Connecticut when I was at Fine Cooking where I couldn't make it to a farmer's market. It broke my heart, really. I couldn't keep my rosemary plant alive, which I had carried around. I bought it in New York at Union Square Green Market, took it on the train I had it for like 5 years, and it died during this last time at Fine Cooking because I was so busy. So, but it really wasn't until I got out here that I started stalking farmers. I was fascinated by them. And I got really, I met some people who were in the farming community here, and they were wonderful, and they took me in, and I started to really get interested in it. I moved into my second rental apartment, and the owners of the house said, well, we Googled you, and we think you need a garden. I was like, okay, they built me a garden. So, and then the next summer, I met the guy, Kay knows, and we rented a plot at Native Earth Teaching Farm and sold some of our vegetables. And then we lucked into being able to rent a farmhouse and some land, and we started our farm. So.
One of my first memories of getting to spend some time with you was I came out I think I helped you weed the garden or plant something out there because it was the only time Susie had available. So I just got out there in the dirt with her, and it was one of the most wonderful, relaxing things that I had done.
I mean, they say now there's some sort of serotonin thing that goes off when your hands are in the dirt. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some science behind it. But for me, I think it's just I've got a crazy brain, so gardening really takes my mind off things, and I feel very relaxed when I'm doing it. So.
Right. Susie, many writers just stick to one genre. They're poets or journalists or novelists, and you've been involved in so many aspects of the writing and publishing field. But you've said that you consider yourself a writer first and an editor second, even though that's where you've been your professional life has been largely there.
Right.
So I have 3 questions related to this, and I'll repeat them if you need for me to. What or who inspired you to think of yourself as a writer and pursue a profession in that?
Start with that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying earlier, I was born verbal, which is a problem. I talk a lot, and I immediately started writing things down. I've published my first poem in 6th grade at my school. It's literary magazine. But really, it was my high school English teacher senior year. I loved English, but it was a creative writing class, and she very much encouraged me to write in my voice. Absolutely changed my life as a writer, really. And then I went at Duke. I had the opportunity to study with a novelist named Reynolds Price, who I did longer narrative poetry with him and short fiction. And he brought Eudora Welty and Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison and all kinds of people for our little group of people so I was in awe of all that, and I always wanted to be a writer, and I published poetry in college too. No clue what I was going to do when I was at Duke in the 80s when everybody was pre-med or pre-law. To be like a writer person was crazy. So I get to the end of senior year, and Reynolds Price says, well, I think you need to go to one of these publishing programs. And so off I went to NYU summer publishing program and met Sarah. And I just have to tell the story because I didn't want to go back to Washington where I'd grown up. And I was like, New York, this is fun. I like this. The program was only like 8 weeks long or something, but Sarah was teaching there. And so I walked up to her, and I'm kind of, believe it or not, a little bit shy. And so it was a big deal for me to go up and ask her if I could interview for a job. And she said, well, I don't have a job, but you can come interview. And I was like, okay, that'll be good. And I went to interview with her the day her assistant gave her notice. So and this was like July or August. I was 21 years old. I just graduated from college, and I went to my first job at 17. So
wow.
Anyway, and so the writing thing, to finish up, I did go right into magazines, and I was a magazine editor, and at Fine Cooking I really concentrated on technical type writing, but my cookbooks have given me an opportunity to, especially Fresh from the Farm was sort of a mini memoir, so that's been fun, and I've written part of a memoir, which I need to go back and work on. I really hope that I will get to that. But one of the best things I'm doing right now is writing for the editor of the Gazette is right over there, Julie. And she asked me to write a column, a food column for the summer. And she said, well, doesn't have to be a straightforward profile. You can write in your voice. And so I've taken on this weekly assignment, which I'm really slow because I'm not a reporter, but it's really, really good for me to exercise my writing muscle. So it's been great.
We're going to open up for questions in 1 second, but I wanted to know, and I think you sort of alluded to this, if economics allowed, what would you write and devote yourself to as your next project? And you could write anything you want, anywhere you wanted it.
Well, definitely a book. I'm not sure exactly what that book would be, but
okay.
I would love to do that. So.
Okay. All right. So, anybody have any questions for Susie about anything? Laurel.
Well, thank you. When you write your proposal, how many recipes do you have in mind, and how many have you already written? How many do you get ideas from other recipe authors?
Well, I'll do that in reverse order. I do go through a lot of cookbooks and my other stuff to sort of get ideas, but for the proposal, I think I had an entire list of recipes, maybe? I don't know. I don't know, but and definitely some developed, and they always tell you. And I remember my editor at Chronicle cooked a recipe out of my proposal. So you do not turn in a proposal with recipes that haven't been properly developed and tested. So yes, there's a fair amount of work up front. So Priscilla.
Lisa, right here.
Hi, I'd like to say how much I really enjoy your writing in the Gazette.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, editor, for having the idea of having Susie write for you. It's so superb.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions about my garden.
Okay, Priscilla.
My theory is that I'm only going to grow what my garden likes to grow, my soil likes to grow, because otherwise I just get too frustrated and disappointed. Like I can't grow cabbagey things because I get the holes in them. My question is, can every garden grow everything? And secondly, what's the whole craze with raised beds? And I don't have them, and should I think, because I like a messy garden.
Okay. Well, soil, no, not everything is going to grow well. That's one of the wonderful things about growing and gardening. Some things do flourish. I mean, I have zinnias and tomatoes in 2 different places in 2 different gardens where I am now, and they're thriving in one place and not so much in another. In that case, it really is the soil. And water is just the hugest thing ever, proper, consistent watering, not overwatering under. I don't feed as much as I should, but starting out with good soil and a lot of compost is in your soil is really good. And raised beds, I mean, as a market grower, what we did from the very beginning was dig out our paths and mound the soil to create raised beds. And that's an efficient way of creating paths. The great thing about raised beds is that they warm up a little more quickly in the spring, and they drain a little better. And also, if you've got really tough soil to work with, you can build up something that you can dig into. So. No.
Well, that would be why I would have a raised bed.
Well, yes,
So I don't
also,
have to lean
and
over
I'm
so
talking
much.
about beds that don't have wood enclosures, but they're fabulous. I mean, they're much easier to maintain. So.
I never thought about the soil being warmer.
Yeah.
I never thought about the soil being warmer.
Yeah.
And we had another question over here.
Are we short? Are we close on time?
We have 2
Yeah.
actually.
Thank you. Do you or any of your colleagues raise watermelon radishes? They are in every picture. They are so pretty.
Yeah.
I cannot find a watermelon radish on this island. Where shall I look?
Oh, to buy it and eat it?
To buy it and slice it and make it.
Well, for one thing, it's
part of that plate that is so delicious.
It's past radish season. They grow really well in the springtime, and then
Right.
farmers will replant them for the fall. So that's probably why you're not seeing them.
Okay.
Come earlier.
I was here in April and May.
And you didn't see them?
No.
They, the one time I've tried growing them, I don't know, Anne, have you ever? I didn't have great luck with them. I grow French breakfast and red cherry bells and have awesome success. And so I'm afraid I'm not the expert on
There have
watermelon.
been plenty of Davignon radishes, but those watermelon radishes are very
pretty.
elusive.
They are pretty.
Right. We have another question right here.
Hi, Susie. Hello. My mother was an amazing cook, and she had a huge vegetable garden, and she, too, loved being in the dirt. Every week, she would make dinners all week, and then at the end of the week, we had something called the refrigerator soup.
Yes.
And it was whatever was
Yes.
left over. Some of them were great, and some of them weren't. She never wrote down anything that she did, so we never knew how to recreate. But how many of your recipes were a mistake or just a whim and it came out fabulous, and how did you remember to write it down? And
Oh, I never remember to write them down when that happens. And some of the stuff I make from leftovers is so good. But, that's one of the things in Simple Green Suppers. There are a lot of little tiny sauces in there. Farmhouse vinaigrette, little tahini sauce, peanut sauce, little cucumber yogurt sauce. And a lot of times I have those hanging around and just adding them into my stir fry at the end or with some noodles. I mean, that's sort of what Simple Green Suppers is all about, is being ready and prepared to put together those fabulous things that may be a little different every night, and also making some things ahead so that you can do that.
Right. Other questions? We have an expert.
One more question?
You have a farm and a market. Where are you located?
I moved, so I have a very small farmette now. And I do have the farm stand open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm on State Road next to Island Farms Road. If you go up from up Island Kronig's, which is on the right, Vineyard Gardens on the left,
Right.
and you'll see my six burner Sue is my farm stand, and you'll see the blackboard
right there.
when I'm
Okay,
open.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
It does. It does.
We have time for one more question. It's near the stone wall. One more question.
Yes, behind the ugly stone wall. I live on Tripp Barnes' property. For anybody who knows Tripp.
Yeah.
Yay, Tripp.
I maybe this you answered this and I didn't hear, but I hope not. So, as a vegetarian, what do you do for your protein? Are you an egg eater?
I do eat eggs, yeah. So I'm not vegan, I'm vegetarian, so I eat dairy. One of the things I do in the book, I'm sort of a chickpea nut, but a lot of nuts, a lot of beans, a lot of avocados, a lot of vegetables have protein in them. So what I'm showing people to do in the book is sort of layering flavors. Like I was going to talk about, I've got a strawberry, pecan, goat cheese, arugula salad, which sounds like something that might be a side salad, but this has wheat berries in it, and not a ton of wheat berries so that you're getting weighed down by it, but just enough. And with all those different types of vegetables and proteins, you get full.
So I want to thank everybody. Thank Susie and Kay, and encourage you to go buy the cookbooks. They're amazing.
Yay, buy books, people. we really, really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Susie's going to be signing right over there, so her new book is there. Thanks.